Hey guys, I'm Dan Whitaker. Today, using the latest feature in the MySwing 3D software, we are going to take a look at the action of the left wrist through impact. So we're going to take a look at three good players there. They're all plus handicappers. I'm going to take a look at the function of their wrists. So the directions, i.e. side to side, up, down, and rotation, and what's happening to them through the golf ball. I'm going to briefly mention in there Dustin Johnson, because people obviously do reference Dustin a lot because it's the ball absolutely miles. But is he the norm or is he an outlier? Let's have a look at that. So looking at the action of the lead wrist through the golf swing, we can see here on the graphic, so we've got supination, that's the rotation of the arm, and we can see the flexion and extension of the wrist. So we can see here that Tom at the top of the backswing there is 27 degrees of extension. That means he's got quite a lot of cup, okay? And what we'd see then is on the way down, that wrist flattens to here, okay, and then it starts to flex downwards, but through impact, here's the big bit, that wrist is extending, and at impact itself he's in 5 degrees of extension. So what does that actually look like on camera? So we can have a look here from the top, wrist then starting to flatten right here, and on the way down that wrist is fairly flat and there's a little bit of extension here at impact, but you can't really see that, okay? Obviously this is just after impact that the camera's captured it, but you wouldn't think that was extending if you had a look at that on the screen. Now if you have a look at what the swing looks like from down the line, you definitely wouldn't have thought that there is a ton of extension at the top. Actually it looks pretty flat, okay? That just goes to show the difference between looking at a 2D image versus looking at a 3D image. So I'm going to go now into having a look at Reese. So we'll just get Reese up on the screen real quick right here. Okay, and so Reese is a good player. He's currently playing college golf when his video actually works. So what we'd see is at the top, Reese has got 8 degrees of extension, so very little extension at the top, so just 8 degrees of cups. On video, that'll look really, really flat. So then on the way down, that wrist obviously gets flat and then bows. Every single player's wrist will bow on the way down, okay, or every single really good player. So he gets it 35 degrees of bow, okay, or flexion, and then that is then now on the way through impact, is extending through impact to the point when it then goes back into extension after the ball's been struck. So we have a little look at what this looks like. We can see right here that he's still got 12 degrees of flexion impact, but it's moving into extension. Okay, and we can also see that radial and ulnar deviation at the bottom, so that is the wrist cocking and uncocking, and we can see that just before impact that wrist will uncock. That's just the weight of the club working down to allow that club to release properly. So we have a look at what this one looks like on the video. So as a 2D image, once again here we take this one back, so we get this to the top. Now we'd start down, okay, we can see that this left arm is starting to rotate in, okay, and it's pretty flat there at impact, okay, but we can see that it's after impact there's a little bit of cups. That's where we're getting that bit of extension, okay, but you wouldn't, once again, you wouldn't necessarily see this without the use of a system like this one, okay. Have a look at this from down the line. We just see at the top of the backswing, okay, pretty flat at the top. It doesn't look wildly different to Tom's though, to be fair, okay. And then on the way down, it's some bowing right here, so you can actually see that little bit of bow, a little bit more here, and then obviously it starts to kick back. So we're going to take a look at another student right now. He actually has it fairly different during the golf swing in terms of angles, okay. He actually gets it a little bit bowed, a little bit kind of Dustin Johnson-esque. He'd be very pleased if he hit it as far as Dustin Johnson, but won't all of us. So what we'd see is at the start, he starts off with 4 degrees of extension in the wrist, but then at the top of the backswing, he gets 32 degrees of flexion. So he's actually got a little bit of bow at the top, and you would see that because of this bit of bowing, he will get less wrist angle, so we'll get kind of left wrist set, so he won't get the wrist cocked to 90 degrees. So it's something that he's aware of. Okay, now what will then happen is on the way down, it'll flex a little further, but obviously it can't flex too much more. His starts to go once again all the way through. It's extending. Okay, so it's going from 28 all the way down to 5. Okay, which is, I believe, at impact. So having a look at what that one would look like from video. So we get this one up on the screen right here, and this guy's good player. Okay, so we get it to the top here, and we can see that there isn't quite the amount of set in the golf club. We can see, okay, it's a little bit more bowed, a little bit more behind the hands. Then as he's coming down, it's definitely bowing down a little bit more right here. Okay, after it's held on through the impact position through here, we can then just see that it obviously starts to come through the ball pretty nicely. Okay, but you know, we can see that this wrist is definitely bowing a little, but it is still kicking back. Okay, this definitely wouldn't look like this on video, but this is where the advent of the 3D comes in, and we can see that once again it goes radial deviation, and then that left wrist is uncocking on the way down, and the left arm is supinating, so it's rotating. So that shows us the amount of pronation, rotation in the backswing, and rotation on the way down. So have a quick look at how you can maybe look to apply a few of these elements into your game. So as we've just seen there on the screen with the use of the MySwing 3D software, that is a new feature in their software showing what the wrists are doing. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Love the graphics, makes it really simple to show people. Now, how can we simplify that a little further for you guys? Now, what we're looking at is rotation. So pronation, supination is simply rotation in the backswing, rotation in the follow through. Okay, ulnar and radial deviation is simply wrist cocking, uncocking. Okay, and when we're talking flexion and extension, that is simply the wrists going like this. So that is simply a hinge. Okay, so we've got the 3 directions of movement. First one, rotation of the arm. That is not something I have to teach that often, because we tend to find that as the shoulder is opening up, that tends to want to pull this arm in. Some people I will have to teach it to, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have to be there that often. The other bit, the kind of the radial and ulnar deviation, so the wrist uncocking, that will happen a lot because obviously the club's coming down in here. Gravity and the weight of the club coming down is going to make that wrist uncock, okay? So once that shoulder's starting to move up through the golf ball, left side's extending as well, the force of gravity and the weight downwards, imparting that force on the wrist, is going to make that wrist want to uncock. But the big one is, how does this relate? Now, first bit is, if your arms are out of position relative to your body, i.e. do you leave them behind you and drag your arms, do you overextend your arms and get them too far forwards, or get them just way out of position relative to your body, you may have to flip, you might have to overextend, you have to do all sorts of things to try and square that club to the ball at impact. That's a different fault, okay? We're talking what happens to those wrists. So, if you're a flipper, then you might find that you are fully extended, but it might be that there's lots of other reasons for that. So it's not necessarily just looking at trying to bow, okay? If you're trying to bow the wrist or trying to go into flexion through the golf ball, keep it moving in this direction, chances are you might end up being injured through here. The forces of the club coming in, the club maybe get stuck into the floor through here, the wrist is still trying to pull, all extension going on through those tendons. You need to be pretty careful. You know, one of the reasons Trevor Immelman disappeared off the planet, he moved in that direction, had wrist injuries. They're really, really difficult to overcome because every time he goes hitting balls again, keeps wanting to go in that direction. So hard to change. But what we're looking at is, how do you release the golf club with this, okay? So both wrists are hinging, and what we'd look at is, as I rotate the body through, that wrist has gone into maximum extension right there. So if I just do that reversal for you guys to see right here, we can see that club is looking back to you. Okay, so that's it fully released. But if I bring that round and back through to here, so there's it released. If I bring my arms from that position and don't change them, they haven't touched, but the club is released. okay? So that is this wrist going into maximum extension, meaning that the right wrist will end up going into flexion, okay? So as we know that it is extending through the golf ball, but you aren't extended. So it's really interesting just to see that that's how the club releases. It doesn't need a swivel rollover release to square that club. It only needs that if you are really out of position on the way down, and that's your way of saving the shot. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you found that really useful. There should be some great stuff in there that you can take away to help your game. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so below. Got some great content going forward, some interesting stuff. If there's anything you'd like to see me look at, start doing in future, discuss, please comment below, let me know, email me, etc. All the social platforms are below. Thanks for watching and speak with you again soon.